Thank you for joining us for this month's National Economic Outlook, written by Local Market Monitors founder Ingo Windsor. Ingo is a graduate of MIT and Boston University, and he's not your typical economist. He has a knack for presenting complex facts in an easily understandable way. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ingo.
Thank you, Julie. Every month, we look at the latest economic data to see what they can tell us about real estate markets, where they are now, and where they may be headed. You make better investments when you have a better idea of the economic forces that affect supply and demand. Because of the government shutdown, many economic statistics are not available this month, especially data about jobs, our best indicator for current economic growth. Instead, we'll look at other ways to assess the current situation and the most likely future. First, we'll take a crack at jobs anyway. Here's the chart of job growth as we saw it last month. It shows the increase in jobs every month compared to the same month of the previous year. The latest data point from August showed annual growth at 0.8%, and we can see a sharp downward trend. These numbers come from a survey the Bureau of Labor Statistics takes every month. Note that it's a survey, which means it's based on reports from only some employers, mainly larger ones. Now we'll look at a different way the Bureau also collects job data from a quarterly census. It's a census, which means it includes all employers and is therefore a more accurate measure of job growth. Here's the numbers from this way of collecting data. The obvious drawback with this census is that it takes longer to collect and process. The latest data point is only from March, and the numbers don't include government workers. Still, the difference is pretty stark and pretty disturbing. The growth rate in March was just 0.3%, a lot lower than the 1.1% reported from the monthly survey. And it's fair to guess that the current census numbers, if we had them, would be below zero, especially when you consider the large firings in the federal government. The reason I keep harping on jobs as our best indicator for the health of the economy is that the US, unlike China and Germany, for example, which rely on exports, is a consumer economy. Consumer spending provides our economic growth. For that reason, it's useful to consider factors other than the very basic one of just having a job that can help or hurt the ability of consumers to spend. One of them is debt. Here's a picture starting in 1970 that shows the amount of consumer debt per person in the US adjusted for inflation. It's mainly credit cards, car loans, and student loans. It does not include mortgages, which we'll get to later. There are three important things to see on this chart. First, that the amount of debt is much higher than it used to be. Remember, it's already adjusted for inflation. Second, and more important, is that peaks in debt often come right before a recession, presumably because consumers max out their credit and stop spending. And third, and most ominously, that we just hit one of those peaks. Having a lot of debt keeps consumers from spending, but the interest they have to pay on that debt makes the situation even worse. This chart shows the interest rates people pay on credit card balances. Even before the Federal Reserve raised rates in 2020 to combat inflation, it was above 15%. But right now, it's an astonishing 22%. This may be good for banks in the short run, but it's a strong reason why consumers may spend less. Money that goes to the bank doesn't go to the local grocery store. And it may not be so good for banks either, because the rate at which they have been writing off credit card balances as bad debt has increased to more than 4%, the highest level since the 2008 recession. If write-offs gets much higher, banks could have problems. And this leads to the last item we'll look at, mortgages and home prices, because they can affect both consumer spending and bank stability. During the 2008 recession, banks took big hits because falling home prices caused a lot of homeowners to default on their mortgages. Much of that was due to subprime mortgages, which aren't a problem this time, but the huge increase in home prices in recent years means that banks hold a lot of assets whose value depends on home prices staying above current levels. A fall in prices can spell trouble for them. And for the 65% of consumers who are homeowners, the recent rise in prices made them feel wealthier, so they spent more. But any fall in home prices will have the opposite effect and accelerate the economic slowdown we're already seeing. This chart shows the increase in the average home price each quarter compared to the same quarter of the previous year. In the second quarter of this year, the average price was still up 4%. But that's the average for the country. This chart shows home sales data for the South Atlantic region, mainly Florida and South Carolina, which often lead the country in price changes. In July, prices there were up less than 1%. And this chart shows prices in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, which in the second quarter, where prices in the second quarter were down 7%. Unfortunately, I think many more markets will look like this in the next year. Home prices in most areas of the country are higher than incomes by 20 to 40%. If prices readjust that much, consumers, banks, and the economy will be in trouble. That's it. In this time of uncertainty, it's important for bankers and investors to stay on top of local economic and real estate developments. Local Market Monitor provides the data and analysis they need with local market reports and investors' metro analysis. Thanks very much for following along. This is our National Economic Outlook. I'm Ingo Windsor.